Hey everybody, my name's Zach, and today I want to talk about how to run the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition scenario, the Winoka Point Research Center. Winoka Point Research Center is a short little scenario in the book Fear's Sharp Little Needles. In it, the players play investigators who decide to check out an abandoned government research facility that was shuttered and erased from public memory by the US government. The facility has a bunch of horrible rumors about it, but the reality is even worse. I've run the scenario once, and it's just short single-session scenario. It runs great with either a bit of improv on behalf of the keeper, or alternatively a bit of extra writing to kind of give the scenario some details. It's a fun Patient Zero zombie origin story, and it can be run as a one-shot or can be incorporated into a larger campaign pretty easily. The scenario in the book as written is very succinct. It doesn't have a lot of details for the keeper. There's not a lot of stuff like handouts with multi-paragraph explanations that the players can read, so it's up to the keeper to either improv that stuff themselves and kind of hand wave around it, or alternatively do a little bit of work to create those details for the players. So in this video, I'm going to spoil the mystery of what actually happened at the facility. I'm going to go through each section of the scenario and give you tips on how to run them. And then at the very end, I'm going to give you a 1-minute plan that you can follow to run this scenario successfully. So let's get started. As always, a couple quick disclaimers before we get started. First, just some little bit of content warnings. This scenario involves zombies, and there's also a few indirect references to inhumane animal lab testing. Second, this video is for keepers only. Call of Cthulhu is a mystery game, so as a player, if you spoil everything for yourself in advance, you're not gonna have any fun. All right, keepers, now that it's just us, let's dive in. In 1985, a government research facility on an island off the coast of the United States suffered an outbreak as a result of Project Osiris. The project was a virus research program that led to the discovery of O12W, a virus that kills and then reanimates animals, turning them into zombies. Nobel Prize-winning biochemist Gregory Dodson, who was running the research, perished in the outbreak, and the island facility was sealed by the US government and erased from history. More recently, an urban exploration group has gone missing while exploring the facility. Locals nearby may remember the island, but they know it's off limits and patrolled by Coast Guard, and some also know that it's surrounded by sea mines designed to deter visitors. Unlike many scenarios that explain how the players get pulled in this scenario, it's up to the keeper to come up with a hook for the player characters. The scenario kind of vaguely suggests that they could be more urban explorers going in after the first party, but it doesn't really give any concrete ideas, so it's going to be up to you as the keeper to make a decision. So let's talk a bit about setting and character creation. First of all, this is a modern day scenario, and it can really be run in pretty much any coastal area. The scenario suggests that this happens off the coast of either the northeast or the northwest of the United States, but it could really be anywhere that has enough wealth to fund a top-secret experimental research program. I ran this scenario in Washington State, since that's where my current campaign is set, and I wove it into the larger campaign. As for character creation, players can pretty much play any character that would have a proactive motivation to want to go and explore the facility. Explorers and journalists, anybody who wants to dig in and find out what happened or get some cool pictures or videos or create any media around this place, those are all great choices. I would say that another great choice is playing maybe some government agents or law enforcement agents who need to check up on the facility and maybe even find the missing urban explorers. If you are going to go with this route, I would say maybe make sure that they're law enforcement agents who aren't in on the secret of Winoka Point, since investigating what actually happened there is about half of the scenario itself. Think of Sheriff Harper from Stranger Things, for example. He doesn't actually know what's going on at the facility. The feds haven't clued him in on that yet, but he does know that he needs to keep his town safe, and so that's his motivation to go in and see all the scary things that are happening there. The exposition section of the scenario is pretty much up to you completely to decide how to run. So you could start out by simply explaining the premise, and the PCs are already in a location about to start their research. Or you could also come up with kind of a backstory. So for example, I ran this as a part of a larger campaign that I'm running right now. It's a sort of a serialized set of investigations based around a single investigation organization. In my particular campaign, this organization is this kind of historied but poorly funded paranormal research institute in Seattle, and it has this rotating list of research assistants who go out to follow up on reports provided to the Institute. It's a twist of the podcast, The Magnus Archives. Great podcast, you should check it out. The burden is on you as the keeper here to figure out exactly how the characters are motivated to go explore this place. You may want to engage your players here too and see if they have an idea for a shared backstory that would work. Anything should work as long as the players can answer the question, what is my motivation to go to this scary place that most reasonable people would stay away from? Okay, so the first half of the scenario is figuring out what the facility is and how to get there. This is going to be an open-ended clue investigation, very Call of Cthulhu style. So it's going to be sort of a series of library use roles and social roles as the player characters research, Google, and talk their way into the backstory clues about the facility. The general info the players are going to find during this section is a record of the missing urban explorers expressing their intent to go to the facility, with no record of them returning, of course. A record that the island was once named Winoka Point, and it's now named Connolly Island instead. And when you go through old records, you find out that the old name appears to have been erased. Third, the existence of Henrietta Krantz and her investigative research into Gregory Dodson's disappearance. The players are going to get these clues through Googling and library research, and again, it's really up to the keeper to decide how much they want to improv this versus actually going through the effort of creating homemade handouts. I like handouts, so I made some, and they're in the description if you want to check them out. Disclaimer, my handouts are not that good, but they should give you a general idea of the kind of thing that you could go for. Once the players have all the general clues, they'll realize that there is more to the story here, but they're going to need to go on site and talk to some locals to figure out the details. Once they travel to the nearby coastal towns, they'll be able to learn a couple clues, like the fact that the Coast Guard monitors the island and actively tries to keep people away. Another local might tell a story about how no one ever goes there. A few locals once tried and they were never seen again. In addition, they may also learn that the waters around the island are actually protected by chains and sea mines. They may also hear some rumors that people suspect that government surveillance is going on in the nearby area. This part's the same story as the general info. It's up to the keeper to decide how much you want to improv this and kind of hand wave how they get the details versus actually prepping out specific social encounters and NPCs for them to talk to. The module doesn't provide any. I found this pretty easy to run, honestly. I just kind of created a simple local bar in South Newbury, which is one of the local towns that the module references, and there were a couple locals there that they were able to talk to and do some social roles with to get the info. So once the players are comfortable with the amount of backstory that they know about the facility, their next logical step is going to be to actually go to the facility itself on the island. So naturally, they're going to need to get a boat somehow and head to the island without getting blown up, drowned, or arrested. It's up to the keeper to decide how easy or hard you want to make this. Instant death, I would say, due to a failed pilot boat roll when no one has anything better than the base skill, probably is going to feel a little bit unfair and boring unless your plan is to intentionally strand them on the island and TPK them, which is fine, by the way. Good for you. But I think it's a good idea to be flexible with the skills that the players can use here. I think navigate, spot hidden, or kind of anything else you can think of that would help them get there without running into a mine might be a good replacement. I'd also suggest some stealth penalty as well if the players go during daylight, since the Coast Guard could see them. But I might give them a free pass if they go at night, just because, again, if they get caught by the feds and they never make it to the facility, it's kind of a boring way to end the scenario. Once they arrive on the island, you could also create a small challenge for them to find the facility, although I didn't really think that was necessary. All right, so once the players are safely on the island at the facility, the crawl through this facility is going to be the biggest and most climactic part of the scenario. So the first thing that I would suggest is reducing the size of the large blueprint map that's given in the scenario book. The reason I say this is just because there's not really enough clues to fill most of the rooms of this place, and it gets really tedious if the players go from room to room to room, and every time they go in there, you have to say nothing of note in this room, and then they just say, okay, well, I guess we go to the next one. I reduced the facility map to a single ground level and then a single sub-level. The sub-level was accessible via a hidden elevator shaft that they could find. I think that worked pretty well. But I think crawling through this facility can be equally fun as either a Theater of the Mind crawl or potentially a grid map. I found a really cool grid map on the internet of a research facility, and I loaded it up into my virtual tabletop. I added all kinds of dynamic lighting and ambient sounds in the area to kind of creep them out as they walked through the dark hallways. And I thought that was really fun. The players seemed to have a really good time crawling through the grid. So during their exploration of the facility, the players are going to find the following clues. Firstly, some lab equipment showing that the research was biological in nature. This is a great opportunity for any characters with academic skills around science to use those skills and get some clues that the typical investigator couldn't. Second, they're going to find the remains of some burned science records that indicate that people who left this place in a hurry really didn't want anybody finding out what happened here. Third, they're going to find some leftover equipment from the missing urban explorers, indicating that they were in fact here and that they might still be missing in the area. Fourth, they're going to find the bloody ID card of Dr. Gregory Dodson. And then fifth, they're going to find a desk safe containing research notes about Project Osiris, which should spill most of the beans to them about what actually happened. These clues are eventually going to make it clear that there was nefarious biological research going on here that ended in a pretty bad disaster. Once again, it's going to be up to you here to decide how much you want to sort of handwave and improvise these clues versus making up specific handouts that the players can read. I did go ahead and make a binder handout with some multi-paragraph text that kind of creepily describes the progression of the research at the facility. And again, that's in the comments if you want to check it out. Once your players are good and creeped out after exploring the dark and dangerous abandoned facility, eventually they are going to run into a zombie. And the scenario is actually built in such a way that it kind of gives the players a warning about zombies before introducing them to a full-on human one. Because first, they're going to meet a research rat who has been infected. The rat is pretty much impossible to kill, and the scenario says that only gross destruction renders its body so broken that it's no longer able to move. Only by burning or dissolving the body in acid can the rat truly be destroyed. I turned the rat into a pet cat just to kind of make it a little bit more personal and horrific. And I also put this on the ground level just to make it easier to find and kind of give the players that upfront clue that the result of all this scary biological research that's been hidden by the government is zombies. Of course, after that confrontation with the research rat, the players still have the option to continue exploring until they find the elevator shaft, and if they're foolish enough to go down it, they're going to hear rapping on one of the massive metal blast doors in the sublevel. They may or may not recognize this as Morse code, and one thing I did want to kind of point out is if you want them to be able to recognize it on site and decode it on site, think about what skill they would need to use for that. I didn't really think about that in advance. And so I had to make a ruling on the fly and tell them that they're going to have to get back and do some actual looking up of Morse code to be able to decode the full message. That actually ended up being a great bookend for the scenario because once they kind of got out of there by the skin of their teeth and got back and got safe and brought the research notes with them, only at the very end of the scenario were they able to decode the message, which was, "Help me." Pretty spooky because you have to wonder who was asking that. And if they do decide to force open the blast door, I think it's completely reasonable to kill them if they don't run away as fast as they can. Another thing to consider too is that some players may want to actually try to get power to the facility again by turning on a generator or something like that. You may want to think through kind of what the outcome of that could be. My thought process was that if they turn that on, then the Coast Guard is going to naturally see all the lights in the facility turn on, and there's going to be some sort of a chase or a manhunt to try and catch them and make sure that they never tell their story. So there's a couple ways you can sort of wrap up this module. Either the PCs are going to unleash the zombie and most likely get bitten, or they'll find most of the major clues, and if they know what's good for them, they'll get out of there safe. As I mentioned before, a satisfying conclusion is if they end up home safe translating the Morse code of one of the taps. And if they do something heroic like fight the zombie or turn on the electricity at the facility, I think you should come up with a fitting horror ending. There should be some serious consequences for that. Either they get bitten or the feds come and make sure that they never make it off the island. And if they do make it out and they do try to tell their story about what happened, of course, I think it's really fun when nobody believes them. That's a classic Lovecraftian ending. All right, I promised you a 1-minute plan for how to run this scenario, so let's give it a shot. The horrible secret of the Winoka Point Research Facility is that the government accidentally created a zombie virus there and sealed the facility to prevent anyone from finding out. The scenario is comprised of 3 main sections, doing background research on the facility and why it doesn't show up in any regular search results. Secondly, finding out local rumors about the facility and how to get there. And third and finally, going to the actual facility itself. In the background research section, the general info the players can find is a record of the missing urban explorers who went to go check out the facility recently, a record that the island was once named Winoka Point and has been since renamed, and most records of the original name have been erased, the existence of Henrietta Krantz and her investigative research into the missing Gregory Dodson. In the local rumors section, the players can find out that the Coast Guard monitors the island and actively tries to keep people away. They can find out that no one ever goes there, a few locals once tried and were never seen again. They can find out that the waters around the island are protected by sea mines and chains, and that people suspect government surveillance of the nearby towns. Finally, when they go to explore the facility, you should have them make a few rolls to make it challenging to get there without being detected by the Coast Guard or blown up by a mine. Once they arrive at the facility, I suggest cutting down the size of the map so that there aren't a lot of empty rooms that don't have clues. As they explore the facility, they should discover lab equipment showing the research was biological in nature. They should discover the remains of burned science records, as well as leftover equipment of the missing urban explorers who went missing there. They should find the bloody ID card of Gregory Dodson and a desk safe containing research notes about Project Osiris. Finally, they should have a confrontation with zombies. Either the research rat, one of the urban explorers who's been turned into a zombie, or both. So that's the Winoka Point Research Center. It's a fun little patient zero zombie story. It can be run in a single session. My favorite thing about this scenario is that it's very flexible, so you can write it into a larger campaign very easily, or it's something that you can kind of just pull out on a Friday night and run a very short, abbreviated version of that's very improvisation focused with your players. Overall, it was a fun mix of campy and Lovecraftian. Really reminded me of kind of Stranger Things, and I'll probably run it again. So I hope this video was helpful. I'm doing my best to put out regular RPG content on this channel, so be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss anything coming down the pipe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.